All right, all right, all right. We are live, 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 live. Welcome and come on in. Grab your coffee. We are talking Seastian Rogers. Say his name. Seastian Rogers. Say his name. He has been gone over 8 months, missing without a clue. And we're going to do a little watch party this morning. I want y'all to join in on the chat as we do a replay of the behavior panel's take on one of the first interviews, at least one of the ones that I have seen. So come on in. I want to hear your opinions. More importantly, let's get the word out that Seastian Rogers needs to be found right now. Seastian Rogers. Let's see what the behavior panel has to say about this particular part of the interview.
When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you." Said goodnight to his puppies. A little bit later, I wound up going to bed, and when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there.
So in your mind, that's usually around what time? When do you normally wake up? Around 6 o'clock?
6.
So were you instantly thinking something's wrong, or were you like, he may just be already in the shower?
I took a second and walked through the house looking for him in case he'd gotten up and was trying to get breakfast or something, because he did that sometimes. About 3 minutes in, give or take, I was on the phone with my husband. I said, "I can't find him." He said, "What do you mean you can't find him?" I said, "He's not in the house."
And so at that point, is that when you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other side of the bed? The normal places he may be in the house, and
a hiding place on the other side
so
of the bed.
I was like, okay, well, hold on a minute. And immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I ran all over the house, outside, inside. I looked in every closet.
Within minutes, they were here. They responded within minutes, and here we go.
So you said you were on the phone with her, so
Yes,
you were not home.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I was at work. I'm a tower crane operator, and I was working in Memphis at the St. Jude project.
This part's a question.
So
a lot of people.
I have an earpiece in that talks to my phone. I have another earpiece in that does the radios. So when she was talking to me, it was like, what? I was confused. We talked about where he could possibly be, and then we went from there and led to calling the cops, and here we are now.
Some people question the time of day he's on the crane,
yes, ma'am.
possibly in the dark.
Rapid fire. They had cars. They had cars from here down to the
main
road, as far as I could tell.
We're talking Seastian Rogers
through
today, guys.
both of your minds. I mean, are we panicking? Is it this, oh, I think he's probably at a neighbor's house, or what are you thinking?
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner.
This is the behavior panel.
He's never run away before.
Watch party.
Come
on in. Let's hear your opinions.
I don't know why.
Your thoughts.
I don't know why he walked out that door.
Notice the rocking in this interview.
He's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means. But there's answers to questions that have no answers, or questions with no answers right now that we are searching for desperately, and we just don't have that.
This is here's micro infusion system. Now,
we're gonna get that off there. And what do y'all think of that first interview? I'm sure y'all have seen that before. Okay, a lot of people have things to say concerning it, for sure. We noticed some remarks by Katie that a lot of people have had questions with One is the use of the number 3 came up, where that's what some people who study deception say is the liar's number. I'm not saying she's lying. I'm just saying this is some things that have been pointed out, and I want to know what you've heard and what you think as well. So when people say they looked at a place 3 times or 3 places, or it took 3 minutes, a lot of times that is an indication, say, of deception. We're going to go ahead and hear what the behavior panel has to say. That's Greg Hartley, Scott Rouse, Chase Hughes, and Mark Bowden. So here they are. Let's hear what experts have to say about this part of the interview.
With these questions that are being asked is what we call target locking behavior. And this kind of pairs in with something called confirmation glance. And this one behavior I've seen in somebody who's guilty every time they have this behavior. And it's typically during 2 super key points here. And the first one is when a super critical question is being asked that can help them to shape their perception a little bit, when their innocence can be displayed. Second is during and just after their answer, to make sure that the interviewer believes it. And we're not seeing any of this here at all. When she's talking, he is comfortable looking at her. And this is more common in innocent people, where guilty people want to do 2 things. Number 1 is keep an eye on the interviewer, and 2, avoid looking like they're influencing or persuading the other person by looking at them. I know it's irrational, but that's what the fight or flight brain believes. Mother and father, or stepfather, have an equal amount of exasperation with not.
Sorry about that, guys.
He walked out the gate in uncertainty about some course of events. So that's very good. So keep in mind, when we see small behaviors like Greg talking about him grabbing his arm just a second ago, one of the reasons we talk about clusters so much, pointing out one behavior in isolation is next to meaningless. We've got to have these little clusters of behavior for anything significant to come out of it. That's all I got here, Scott.
All right. Yeah, I agree. It's this in this video. It's hard not to go over the same stuff, so I'll try to knock out a bunch of the same stuff. But Greg, I agree with you. When he's scratching his arm, it seems like something's up there. I think all that's happening here is he's trying to find something to say, so he'll have something to say. I don't think he's a big talker when it comes to tell us what you think about so and so. I don't think he's one to drone on and on. So I think for each one of these situations, he's just looking for something to say. He's just trying to be involved, trying to say something.
Yeah, Scott, one thing I would add, I think it's really easy to pick a thing and lock down, and not just forget body language, the scratch. The whole point I was making is that, and then he opens up. So there's a difference. It's also the same thing. Why didn't you choose this question instead of that question? Look, people are under stress. They make different decisions. And this is a reason, like statement analysis, you got to be really careful with where you assign words to people based on where they're from and all that kind of stuff. Just a thought.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, so we're early on in that area.
And then when he's trying to look more concerned. He's very concerned. Don't get me wrong, but he's trying to look concerned. And I'm under the impression that because he looks concerned for a second, then he goes away fairly quickly. Real emotions stick, even though he's feeling these emotions. He's not deep in it like his wife. And my father always said, if in a marriage, if one of you is in the ditch, in other words, one of them is down, so got a lot of stuff going on, you can't get in the ditch with him, or you'll both be in the ditch. So he may be one of those guys. It's like trying to stay out of it and trying to be I'm the guy here and I'm going to take care of everything. So that could be what we're seeing as well, which I'm tending it's starting to look like that a little bit for me. But he doesn't really even answer the question there. It's just he doesn't even answer it. And of course, she goes along showing the same emotional transmissions and transmitting the same thing that she has been up to this point. So nothing's changed much for her. She's just showing us all the body language of a grieving mother.
Right.
Try not to repeat stuff you guys have said. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, just one thing is that when he was talking about being up in that crane tower, early in the morning, receives the call. He's got his walkie-talkie in one ear and his phone in the other ear. I kind of thought, wow, that's pretty early to be working. And then I realized Mrs. Atwood out the back here she's got a tower block being built behind her place, and I can see the crane as we speak, and it's moving around, and that starts as soon as the sun comes up. As soon as so I don't know at what time the guy must climb up that, you know.
Okay, so I'm going to move ahead a little bit here on this interview. They basically picked up a few things that I picked up in this early part of the interview. I don't think it's mistakable that Katie is very upset. She has all the characteristics of a grieving mother. I lost a child myself, and it's devastating. I feel like for weeks I was like a zombie. You know, and so just there's even, it's like you cry so much that it just seems like you can't even cry anymore, and then you do, you know, it's like it won't stop. You're just in a suspended state of animation in a sense. So let's go ahead and move on a little bit to another part of the interview. Okay. All right, guys, here we go. Add the Proudfoots.
I mean, we've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide. We've provided, and still just don't have any answers.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the $1 million question, or the other $1 million question, how did it go? And we get quite a cluster of gestures in the face there, and gestures with the body. We've
really
got
reading
kind of a closed lip frown, which turns up at one side, almost in kind of a contempt kind of way. We've got, well, certainly it's an asymmetrical gesture by any stretch. Hands go out in a shrug. There's a sideways look on that. Well, so it's quite a shift from what he's done before. Okay. On how did he go.
I'm going to pull this back just a little bit. I want to see a little bit more of that. Okay, here we go. We're going to pick it up right about here. All right, let's go. Oops. Got a commercial here. Okay, give it just a second, and we're going to run through that part of the interview. I just am curious about watching these early interviews. Sometimes there was so much information that, you know, possibly some of the important stuff got missed. It certainly is a case that I am just now entering into, so I'm trying to get all the information I can. I have personally formulated a certain amount of opinions, but I'm not ready to really express the opinions. I'm trying to gather as much information from the early interviews. I thought y'all might be interested too. Plus, a lot of y'all are so far into the case. You've been studying this for months now. It's over 8 months. And I am very curious to get your takes on the whole situation, in particular, the Proudfoot. So I want to see this part of the interview and see what the behavior panel has to say about them. Yeah, let's just look at things as objectively as we can. Because at the end of the day, Seastian is still missing. Seastian still needs to be found. Seastian Rogers, say his name. We're not going to forget him. So let me turn this volume up here.
It was rapid fire. They had cars. They had cars.
Let me get it back. I missed the question.
Look, often we don't understand the working times of other people, what their work is like. And it's very easy if they're doing something which is outside of our scope for us to go, well, that's really odd behavior.
Talking about the crane operator, him being on the crane so early in the morning seemed odd to a lot of people. I want to just catch this part of the question.
He'd go up again, down again, all that stuff, and she'd see him every day, a couple of times, and they got married.
I don't know whether I see the same relationship for Mrs. Atwood
Coffee, guys.
and the crane, and the crane driver.
Another Atwood incident.
One of those tape replays.
Okay.
So you said you were on the phone with her. So
Yes,
you were not home.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I was at work. I'm a tower crane operator, and I was working in Memphis at the St. Jude project. So it's, I have an earpiece in that talks to my phone. I have another earpiece in that does the radios. So when she was talking to me, it was like, what? I was confused. We talked about where he could possibly be,
Early
and then we went from there and led to calling the cops, and here we are now.
People
Within
have
minutes,
questions
they're
about
there at the
being
home.
on that crane
Yes, ma'am.
very early.
It was rapid fire. They had cars.
They
They had
lied
cars from here down to the
to the main road.
road, as far as I could tell.
So what's going through both of your minds? I mean, are we panicking? Is it this, oh, I think he's probably at a neighbor's house, or what are you thinking?
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner.
That
He's
part,
never run away before. I don't know why.
I keep thinking it's
I don't know why he walked out that
it's a
door.
term.
I mean, he's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means. But there's answers to questions that have no answers, or questions with no answers right now that we are searching for desperately. And we just don't have that.
Is there anything that happened that day that you think back and that there might have been a reason he was possibly upset, or something outside that could have enticed him to go outside? Was there anything that came to mind?
We've been combing over that day and even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out.
Do y'all think
He's
of his own
that
will?
morning he was laughing, he was joking. Everyone we were around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood. He was behaving. It'd make more sense if we'd been fighting.
Or he'd been in trouble, but he hadn't even been in trouble. So, I mean,
What do you think of his body
the
language?
$1 million question, why did he go? And the other $1 million question is how.
What about social media? Is there anything that, anyone he could have contacted? I understand he was somewhat of a gamer, or what was he? There was a video game he loved, right?
Was it an
Minecraft.
online
He
predator?
loves Minecraft. The game that he has is not online. He has the Switch.
So no.
Answer. We don't, because of how social media can be, he doesn't have accessibility to communicate with folks
On the internet.
on internet. I mean, we have a firm belief that we just don't feel that right now he's capable of having that kind of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, his phone is locked down, his computers, his gaming. He doesn't have a gamer tag. He doesn't have online capabilities with games. I mean,
We've combed every electronic.
I mean, we've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide. We've provided.
Is that
and
brushed
still
off?
just don't have any
I
answers.
don't know. Some people think so.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the $1 million question, or the other $1 million question:
Girl.
How did he go? And we get quite a cluster of gestures in the face there, and gestures with the body. We've got kind of a closed lip frown, which turns up at one side, almost in kind of a contempt kind of way. We've got well, certainly it's an asymmetrical gesture by any stretch. Hands go out in a shrug. There's a sideways look on that. Well, so it's quite a shift from what he's done before on how did he go. I would suggest what he's saying here is that he feels that's the question. How did he get out there? That's key. And I guess at this point, it's moving from a search to an investigation. And so I guess he's putting the stress on this. The how needs to be investigated, not the where is he. Where is he? They don't know where. They haven't found him at this point. We now need to go back and work out how did he leave.
Right?
And it's maybe, I would suggest the stepfather is saying he didn't leave potentially on his own, or that's a possibility that needs to be looked at. If somebody's to think he's guilty of something, that's an interesting place to go. If you're guilty, to go, let's investigate this. Let's work out how he left, to put stress on that. If I were guilty of something happening in that house, I'd want people to be looking out, not in, for stuff. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. There's a whole lot of adapting, and when they're asking him any reason, he's feeling awkward, you can tell. But this guy also, if we pay attention to him, most of his eye movement, the entire thing is going to be down left, where we think of that as internal voice, as he's digesting questions and how things are behaving. I don't think it means he's calculating and doing all of that. He's now moving, and he's got a heavy internal voice, and his respiration's up. I think this, seeing that, he's thinking, that might be a stretch. He plays a game and he does this. He doesn't have a tag. What will be interesting for me is we all know that people who are on the spectrum, those especially who are really profoundly affected, often can be very good at remembering exact things. I would check the father. He's used the word, he has no gaming tag. Father may have his own accounts. Kid may have ability to get into that, figure out how to make contact with people in a way that he doesn't understand. So I'd look at all that kind of stuff. But she's certain that this kid left. She appears to be certain. Now, we all know that when someone is missing, it's a lot easier to think that they left than they were abducted or somebody did something to them. So it's always a way of holding out hope. Chase, I agree with you earlier with his pursing lips when he was saying he's going to come home. We're going to see a little bit more of that later. I think this guy is a very practical, very pragmatic person in appearance, and maybe that's where he's at. But the dad's then goes to internal
they both are
and emotion, internal and emotion, as they're starting to say, how did he get out? That's when, Mark, I think you're seeing all that behavior. Like, I don't know. How would he get out of here? And I agree. He wouldn't come into my house and look and see if you can find how he got out. That would probably be the last place you want to go. When he does here's one thing that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't do when somebody says, hey, tell me whether you're innocent. And you say, you're cooperating with the police. That doesn't look good.
Yeah,
it doesn't look good. And that's the one thing, one of the first things I saw about this in the beginning was a little clip from him on one of the news channels that says, we're cooperating with the police. Right. That immediately gets your hackles up and you go, well, we better go check and find out what's going on with this guy. Right. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Yeah. When talking about the father, she says, about the real father, she says he talks to his son on a regular basis. Now, a lot of times you'll see that and go, oh, it's something wrong. But I think the mother and the father, obviously they're divorced. There's probably a little rift going on there. So when she's talking about that, she probably calls him his son. Yeah, you come get your son. You do that. That could be, it may not be, but I think maybe that's why she's using that instead of saying the child's name. He's adapting with his hands, and she's still rocking, and he gets in sync with her for a second. But his breath rate goes up, and it's fairly heavy for a second. But because I can't decide this one, like I told you before, I'd gone down a whole road that I got more information. It's like there's no road there, and his eyes are darting around, so that makes me it puts me a little off there for that question there. Then he looks at her again, and she never looks at him. Then he adds another cornball answer to that $1 million question. And the same thing for the second $1 million question. What happened and how, where'd he go and how? My question would be, what happened and where is he?
Right.
But, you may not think like that along those lines when you're in that position. And where did like you were saying, where did the question about cooperating with all the authorities come into play? Where do we hear that? He just threw that in there.
Yeah.
I didn't see any place to even spark that as he went through. So maybe he's, I don't know. Maybe he's worried about that.
Maybe he's
I can't really tell. But his so far his innocence has been in question here. So why would he add that? That makes me suspicious there.
Yeah.
And then again, toward the end, they start sinking together as they're rocking. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. And when he says it
We
makes
all
it
agree.
make more sense if we had been fighting. This
That's
statement is
weird.
really revealing.
Yeah.
There's a good chance parents who were involved would be far less likely to bring up any mention of fighting or anything negative. They tend to default to pretending that everything was perfect, nothing bad ever happens. The dad also mentions him being in trouble, which is also a good indicator that he's genuinely missing here, because it's not trying to pretend to be perfect. There's a strong confirmation glance after the mother says the word switch, and she's looking over to him right at that moment when she's talking about the Nintendo machine.
What do you think?
This is most likely to see if the reporter, or she looks to the reporter to see if the reporter knows even what that is, because it's probably still a foreign object to the mom. So she's making sure the reporter knows it. Then they're talking about not having the answers. This is common. They're not introducing finality, complexity, or ambiguity into the situation. There's a huge difference between being at a total loss for what happened and what we've seen in other videos where the parents speak in terms of the case being unsolvable, all resources have been exhausted, everything that could have been done has already been completed. This is very different than that. So their behavior overall is apathetic and sad and not concerned with displaying emotion and managing perception. Those are the two big things that are missing here. There's not a lot of display of emotion, deliberate display, and managing perception. And keep in mind that nothing we say means anybody's innocent. And in all of our videos, people tend to think we're analyzing people. Or
Okay. So what we're going to do is move along in this particular segment of the behavior panel to check out the next part of the video. So just give me a second to pull that up. I'm just curious as to what y'all think so far. Like I said, I'm just walking into this case pretty much. I've got a bunch of notes concerning the timeline and my own perceptions of what I've seen so far. I have got a lot of feedback. A lot of it's been negative towards the Proudfoots. Once in a while, somebody pops in there like the Proudfoots are innocent, or something like that. But by far, the majority of the people that responded to me and what I've seen online indicates a social attitude towards the Proudfoots that indicates deception. Okay. And so what do y'all think concerning that? What do you think happened to Seastian? Do you think he left of his own? Do you think he left with a friend or a family member or someone he trusted? Do you think a stranger happened in on this situation? Or, what are your opinions? Do you think he would walk away? It doesn't seem likely, but I don't know him. It seems odd that he didn't have shoes on, doesn't it? Some people talked about that as being a form of punishment. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just curious as to what y'all's takes are. So we're going to head back to the behavior panel to see what they have to say here. We'll be moving right on back.
That's good.
someone has beat my record.
Yeah. We're going to have to now
That's good.
That was
These
tough.
guys
create a whole new award. It's going to cost.
I deserve it. When I could hear the generator turning shit off and on, I hit mute because I was like, okay, we don't want all this coming up when it does come back up. And then, yeah.
Well, I make a lot of
Great,
mistakes
man.
too.
Love
So
it.
if they do,
Love it.
Good.
I guess I'm not.
Classic.
I'm not
History,
alone anyway.
history was made today.
That's a good one. We
Yeah,
need that
yeah.
because this is a
Well,
dark subject.
Okay.
Hats off.
12th of March, 2024.
I
The
like
longest mute ever. Greg Hartley, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, guys,
At
let's come on.
2:48 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
You think the
Beautiful.
switch?
Beautiful.
It's like-
God bless.
One of those tape
Here we,
replays.
here we go.
Anything that happened that day that you think back and that there might have been a reason he was possibly upset or something outside that could have enticed him to go outside? Was there anything that came to mind?
We've been combing over that day and weeks before he left and hadn't been able to figure it out. And he was joking. Everyone around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood. He was behaving. Make sense if we'd been fighting.
Or he'd been in trouble, but he hadn't been in trouble.
They felt that was a sign of transparency. The behavior panel did.
The $1 million question, why did he go? And the other $1 million question is,
social media. Is there anything that, anyone he could have contacted? Understand he was somewhat of a gamer, or what was the game he loved?
He loves Minecraft.
Present tense, loves.
he doesn't have accessibility to communicate with folks on internet. I mean, we have a firm belief that we just don't feel it right now. He's capable of having that kind of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, his phone is locked down, his computers, his gaming. He doesn't have a gamer tag. He doesn't have online capabilities with games. I mean,
that's right.
Maybe we've combed every electronic.
We've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide. We've provided.
They've checked it out.
Still just don't have any answers.
Do you know if they found anything concerning online?
Did he have any friends that could have possibly contacted him in some way?
All his friends at school have been questioned to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
Question mark. He's vanished.
Yes, ma'am.
No one can figure out where or why. All right. So let's talk about the relationship involved, because the biological father is very much involved in Seastian's life as well.
Yes, ma'am, very much.
Right. And how would you describe that relationship, the two of them and the four of you?
It's relatively good. I mean, we talk regularly. He talks to his son on a regular basis, sees him on a regular basis. He's involved in school and therapy. And I mean, he doesn't have any extracurricular activities, but I can tell you now, if he did, his dad would be in the front row.
Two different households, and the communication between the three of us is great. I mean, yes, we're just like every parent. We all have our disagreements, but in the end, we come together as a team and we work and we come up with solutions that as we best see fit. I mean, I'm almost in contact with him almost daily.
All right, go.
Yeah, so this one I'm only going to cover a couple of things. If we want to talk about the relationship between the family, there's certainly something going on here. But anytime you get a family with a step parent and all that kind of thing, there's going to be some kind of disagreement. But if you don't believe it, don't just talk about how good the relationship is. She uses a correlate. She does back and forth. It could be around. I read that he's pretty stern about the use of the cell phone, and he says that here, says that we don't allow him to use it freely and that kind of thing. There could be disagreement with the father about that. And then you get to this baggage about where a child lives. So I'm not going to read anything into it. I'm just going to say you might even get different opinions from the father than you're getting from the stepfather and the mother, because that's the way relationships work out. You don't tell me. And then I've recently read that Seastian was supposed to move back in with the father at the beginning of summer. Look, while we're at this, let's stop for just 1 second and say, do anything you can. Go look at posters of this kid, push these posters through your social media network, do anything you can to help people find this kid, whether he's safe, or whether he's not safe. Let's get this kid some help right now and do as much as you can. Social media is a powerful tool. Broadcast this across everything you own, and we may actually get some help for this kid.
We are bringing awareness to Seastian Rogers. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up a little bit. We're going to skip through some of their chit chat. I'm just curious as to what they have to say concerning this case. They have a lot of knowledge. All of them are experts in the field in different aspects of behavior analysis. So I enjoy this show. I feel like I pick up some tips, and probably the most important tip that they give is, one particular behavior really doesn't mean anything. You have to first have a baseline about people, how they are in a normal conversation, and then start noticing certain clusters of behavior that indicate deception, transparency, that type of thing. And then with an overall view, you might come up with some telling behaviors. And, I find it interesting. I think knowing some body language, knowing that type of thing is really important. Really important. Okay, guys. So let's go ahead and continue. Let's turn that up so we can hear.
Question to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
With this big question mark.
Okay, let me turn it back.
All right.
Interviewer.
Just ended their
What do
little
you
thing.
got?
Yeah, simply a reiteration of everything that's been said here. Certainly the stepfather here becomes more alert the moment the biological father is brought up.
Right.
I think that's reasonable given the politics of the situation here. It's not irrational to think that would happen to some degree. It's pronounced here because we don't see the father do very much anyway. He's not big, demonstrative with his feelings, so it kind of stands out a little bit here, but it's not out of the ordinary for the situation, I would say.
One of those tape
All right,
replays.
here we go.
Did he have any friends that could have possibly contacted him in some way on his phone?
All his friends at school have been questioned to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
With this big question mark.
She said to
He's
her
vanished.
knowledge.
Yes, ma'am.
No one.
His mother would be talking to the whole class.
All right. So let's talk about
sound like
the relationship involved, because the biological father is very much involved in Seastian's life as well.
Yes, ma'am. Very much.
Right. And how would you describe relationship, the two of them?
Relatively good. He talks regularly. He talks to his son on a regular basis, sees him on a regular basis. He's involved in school and therapy, and
she is being positive.
He didn't have any extracurricular activities, but I can tell you now, if he did, his dad would be in the front row.
So that says a lot.
In two different households, and the communication between the three of us is great. I mean, yes, we're just every parent. We all have our disagreements, but in the end, we come together as a team and we work and we come up with solutions.
This is a point
as we best see fit. I mean, I'm almost in contact with him almost daily.
Okay, let's talk about Seastian. Tell me about Seastian. How would you describe him?
Hear about Seastian.
Sweet, stubborn. He loves to help. He loves running, and he loves to play his games and his fidgets and Uno. Lord, that's one of his favorite games right now. Favorite color is green.
Say his name.
Music.
Seastian Rogers.
He loves music.
An eclectic taste. An eclectic. I mean, from if everybody knows Eye of the Tiger to Eddie Vedder.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we got Pearl Jam on one hand, we've got Survivor on the other over here. We've got Taylor Swift and
He's got a big crush on her. I mean, country rock,
no
classic.
hip-hop. We don't allow the hip hop.
Well, he doesn't really
Well,
get
I say
into it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year I did this many laps. I did this many laps. I mean, I've got T-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your tomboy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like,
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Okay, so let's see.
Both of them expressing truthful recall when they're listing all these things that Seastian likes to do. They speak about them in presence, like he's still around. This shows us a couple of things. Parents who know the disposition of a deceased child are more likely to accidentally default to past tense when referring to them. And parents who speak in past tense about a child who aren't involved can show that there's a finality to their feelings, like they no longer have faith in the child returning. So all the expressions here are genuine and unforced. And when they're both of them discussing his likes and dislikes, they're comfortable. All the facial expressions, the gestures, the movements match the syntax and the timing. They speak about all the things in present tense with genuine joy. And parents who are involved with a disappearance, even if they can look back fondly on a child's behaviors, are still having to manage perceptions and maintain deception, which keeps them from being this fluid and unconstrained in their descriptions. So this fear of being discovered mutes and muffles these expressions that you're seeing right here in this video that look very genuine to me, at least. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the same. Look, very positive comments around the child. Only one negative one, which is about him being stubborn, which is then kind of laughed off, I think, in a very natural way. To be positive about him, and there's every reason why is going to become more and more stubborn often in their behaviors. Not every child of that nature, not every child, but there is a possibility that this will be a thing for that family at the moment. They get really animated about the Seastian's love of music.
They do.
Clearly, that is a joy for them. It's they're proud, both of them. They're proud, especially the stepfather, I think, shows that real engagement with the son.
He might love music too. So let's go ahead and remove that. So what do y'all think? Do you think that they're being genuine as the behavior panel seems to conclude on this particular interview? There's been discrepancies. There's been things that have come up over time. This was, one of the initial interviews, as I understand, and we're looking at the behavior panel's take on it. There's a few things in this particular interview that have been brought up. Some of the eye contact of Chris Proudfoot, some of the way he averts his eyes, but in all honesty, having a cap shadowing your eyes during this type of an interview, adds a kind of a sinister glare to it, or adds to the illusion of deception, or what I'm trying to say is, like, having where you can see somebody's eyes, and all the eyes are the windows to the soul. You can see if people are being truthful, if they're vying for approval, the different things people do in interviews that indicate, are they being truthful, or are they being deceptive at times. And what I'm hearing from them at this particular point is they're all, with very little exception, coming across as they are being somewhat transparent, somewhat truthful. What do you all think? I'm just curious. Like I said, I kind of came in on this late, so I've heard some other things, but I'm backtracking. I'm just going back. The kid is missing. He's still missing. He still isn't found. And I am a voice for the voiceless. I am definitely speaking up for Seastian, and I'm not choosing sides at this point in time. I don't have enough evidence, or I haven't watched as much interviews on this particular case to formulate good, strong opinions, but a lot of people have. What do you think? What do you know? Does anybody know anything? We still haven't found him. So again, a plea, an awareness. Our grandkids were missing. I'd want someone to do the same thing for them. I'm not doing this to do anything other than just spread awareness, guys. So interact with me. Let me know what you think too. I'm very curious about this case. It's intriguing and it's full of mystery. Let's go back to the behavior panel. Here we are. We're going to turn up the volume on.
Father seems to show some kind of strong relationship with the son around that music piece. Not the kind of thing that I would expect from two people who've been involved in some kind of crime around the child. Again, do I know that to be true? No, not what I would expect. So you'd need to give me lots of other evidence for me to see that would show me an alternative to this. Show it to me so I could see it, hear it, touch it.
Right.
We
That's
want
what I'm
evidence
saying too.
to the contrary, not just possibilities and ideas and imaginations around it. Greg, what do you think?
Right.
So let's first talk about clusters of behavior. And we always say you need cluster of behavior to indicate deception, but that's not the only thing clusters of behavior can indicate. You have to look for clusters that are positive, clusters that mean something else.
Bingo.
And there's a great one here. The stepfather's all locked down. He's in internal voice, and his eyes zone out. They go out of focus. That means he's thinking to himself. He's inside his own head working. What's consuming him? You could automatically assign guilt to that, but it doesn't necessarily mean guilt. Uncertainty, other things, we can't tell that. What we can see is a cluster of behavior around ask about the child. What we would expect, and you both have just hammered this one, but what we would expect from a person who is trying to hide that they know the child is dead is not happy when they think about the weirdness of this kid who has all these, 14-year-old kids are mostly weird because they're trying to figure out what being an adult is while they're still a child. And this kid has got a lot of that. And they're amused by that. So he comes out of this absorption, this focus, this internal dialogue with a smile when they're talking about him being stubborn. Yeah, he's that. And you see all of that happiness. We know that a person who knows someone is passed, if you lose a child, you may never get back to the point you think positive things when that child is brought up, or when you think about the goofiness of things they did. But you certainly wouldn't be okay with it right now. Good indicator. So clusters can be good or bad. We can see the person consumed by something, and he doesn't come out of it into a negative, into a perception management, into one of those tools that we think people who have injured somebody or hurt somebody have. And he uses great illustrators when he's talking about, he loved music here, he loved music here, Pearl Jam to look at that all these things together. So all of these pieces, and then real smiles as they talk about bugs and his panic when he would see bugs, they're amused by that. All those things are a cluster that usually would indicate this person's not.
Okay. I'm going to switch to something else. I'm getting an overall view for this particular part of the interview now. I'm pretty sure it's going to end. Let's kind of cut to the chase. I do not mean that as a pun because there is actually a chase on the panel. So I'm going to cut pretty much to the next replay here just to move forward. And I do want to show something that was like another point of view. Okay, so we're going to go to the replay here. All right, so here we are. Whoops. Here we are. We're going to turn up the volume for you.
Was able to watch this, and maybe he's watching this as it airs.
This should be interesting here.
And if he
got Seastian Rogers, say his name, say his name.
That we love you so much, and we want you to come home.
She's talking directly.
You're not in trouble.
I guarantee you he is loved. And trust me,
Nobody
the
asked.
open arms are waiting for him to come home. From every parent, every family, everyone in the community.
Just pointing that out.
But there's no malice that we just want our boy
Nobody
home.
said there was malice.
That-
Bring it up.
But
that mama's heart. I know it's daddy's too.
Yeah, it's so sad.
But I feel like
I'm just gonna. Well, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and
it's always that extra special bond.
it's so sad. Sometimes it's hard to listen.
Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at.
Don't make me cry.
I don't know where he's at.
And he's still gone. Still gone, people.
Let's talk about the community because I want you all to know.
Oh,
Even my church body. I mean, we're all praying. We're all praying for his
now I'm
safe
rocking.
return.
It just
Quickly.
hurts my heart.
What do you all want to say to the community?
Thank you.
with everything from the bottom of our hearts,
Can't take
I would not have imagined how far this has gotten, but there's no way to repay the gratitude, the love that we have felt from the community, the prayers. But thank you.
But
from the
don't
bottom of our
stop
hearts.
looking.
Yeah, please.
My son is somewhere.
Well, shake
Say
when
no
you.
until he's home.
I don't know. What do y'all think? That. Is it anything? So we'll just, did y'all see anything in that final part of this interview that would indicate deception or anything like that to you? I'm just curious. We're going to go forward here. It's hard for me to watch it, guys. I know it's hard for you too.
Other counties just throughout the state as well. What do you want to say to them?
Help spread the word and keep searching.
That's what
and
we're doing.
thank you. And
I'm just curious.
If you think you see him, call him in.
Thank all the viewers, everybody that's helped from across the board. I mean, everybody has been tremendous.
Call his name.
Yeah.
He'll answer, and if he doesn't answer, he'll look, even if he's not being verbal at the moment.
Checking out early interviews and watching the behavior panels take on it, I'm gathering as much information on the Seastian Rogers case as I can. And so I want to hear what some experts have to say about these early interviews. Thanks so much for joining me, Brenda Epp. Appreciate you so much.
But thank you for everything that everybody has done,
And
has volunteered,
segment.
the continuous efforts. I mean, it's like I said, I've never seen something to this magnitude before.
Our community is amazing.
For the most part,
we're all praying, hoping, and searching.
The behavior panel seems to conclude that, at least in this initial interview that they're doing, that they seem to have a lot of signs of transparency and not too much signs of deception. So let's see.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So one thing that all of us look for in every video that we look at is change. How does a person change from one way of behaving to a different way of behaving? In this whole video, we don't see a lot of it. Both of their behaviors are consistent and continuous throughout this whole thing. And here's why this is so important. When you're innocent, behaving like you behave requires almost zero cognitive effort. No one's focusing on their behavior because they don't feel the need to. The camera being present might add a layer of stress here, but that's acceptable. And we can see the difference between that, I promise you. But being consistent through all of this, no matter how much training somebody's had, if you're guilty of something, I would say it's as close to impossible as it gets to fake at this level. And Mark, you're an actor. You've been to all these famous acting schools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
can you help us just to understand like how hard this would be to fake at this level?
Here's what makes it really hard is when you're acting, the audience have to get it. You're communicating, so it can't be muddy. It's got to be a clear communication, which means you can't have lots of things going on in your mind. You've got to have a clear through line. And that's what makes really good actors great communicators, but not necessarily supernatural. You know, I mean, you know, they don't come across as natural. You go, God, they're a great performer, but that's not what somebody would do in real life. What you're seeing here is real life. It's muddy, it's chaotic. It's some of it is very, very subtle. Some of it's very, very clear. So none of this is like an actor would actually do. I would say acting is an art form, a communication and expression, and what you're seeing there is real life. You know.
Okay. So I'm going to conclude that in this particular part of the interview that the behavior panel saw consistent behavior with the Proudfoots. That's what they're reporting. I do have some other information that I wanted to look at here. And y'all might be familiar with the deception detective. Oops. Let's see. I'm going to just pull that up here. Just going to take me a moment, probably. And I apologize. My internet lags from time to time. So sorry. Okay, so let me know what y'all think about that particular part of the interview. What do y'all think about the behavior panel? Do y'all ever watch that? Do you watch the behavior panel, guys? I find it pretty interesting. I find it to be pretty interesting. I like to study body language and analysis. Okay. I'm having a little lag, so I'm going to just pull out of here. Thank you, guys, if you can hear me.